3-2. Meneses ground ball to short. Could be two. Schmidt flips to second one. Estrada to first. Got him double play. So the Giants turn two, and Casey Schmidt, part of his first defensive play as a big leaguer.
Grandpa Dan. He's got the football hold. He could never fumble with that hold.
No, you can't. You will not drop a child either.
High drive! Left center field! Out of here! Hold on, Dad! Do not drop that kid! Unbelievable.
Yeah, so I was on a movie theater with some of my friends. We were watching Guardians of the Galaxy, and then I actually missed the first call, and then I got they called me again like 5 minutes later. Brandy, our manager at Sacramento, and he started playing, played it cool, and then he told me at the end. So it was really special for me.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Buzz at the ballpark. We'll get into that conversation with the great, and I do mean great, Casey Schmidt. I want to have a conversation about that. Obviously, it's Warriors Day. It is do or die, whatever the game, whatever the term you want to call it today. Obviously, it is must win or the Warriors are done, and then we start all the offseason talk. And I don't want to start the offseason talk quite yet, and I'm certainly not going to get into it today, but we will discuss. Pop is out today. We got a short show today because of Giants baseball and more buzz at the ballpark. With the Nationals, I'll tell you about a great guest list, especially for the 10 o'clock hour coming up, and we will get into some Giants and the buzz at the ballpark with Casey Schmidt. And obviously, if you listen to the show with any regularity, before we get to Warriors-Lakers talk and Game 5 tonight over at Chase, I am extremely biased. I will tell you that right now. I am fair and biased at the same time, and if you follow along with the show, for some weird reason, my son and I started recollecting cards. I was a big collector when I was young, and like everybody, I had Nike boxes full of them, and then I just don't know what happened to them. My parents threw them away, and we had all these great cards. And so my son, who is now 19 and in college, probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, he started getting back into cards. And for some reason, I was at a shop and bought a prospect pack, and there was a couple of rare autographed Casey Schmidts in one pack. So I thought, I don't know who this guy is. He's a second-round pick. He was playing at A-ball. I asked our former producer, now turned hotty-totty management guy, Mike Kohler, about him. He was doing San Jose Giants games, said the guy was a slick fielder, couldn't hit much, wasn't hitting much at the time, then had a great finish to his A-ball season, and now we all know Casey Schmidt because of spring training and everything else. So I went pretty deep, got some more rare cards, got some more autographed cards. I'd say I have, 12, 13, 14, whatever. So, we went pretty deep on Casey Schmidt just for the heck of it, a little bit of fun. Wasn't costing a whole lot of money. And then all of a sudden, look, he hits a home run last night. I've been fair and biased the whole time about him, want him to play. And we'll get more into the conversation about it. And as we get you ready for Giants baseball, we'll get more about it. But, pretty cool at the ballpark. Some buzz. And for all the grief that Farhan has been getting, maybe the fruits will start to come. Maybe they will start to bloom in the minor leagues, because it was cool last night, at least for a night. And I watched it on TV like the majority of you, so if you want to hit up the text line, if you were at the game last night and the type of buzz it generated, again, I'll get to it full later. But it was just cool to see the ballpark buzzing, and Casey Schmidt and Kyle Harrison's playing better. And we've, a number of these prospects we have talked about for a long time, but the effect of this one is this is the first position player for Farhan and company for them to draft and develop. And what we know when the ballpark was constantly full was not only were the Giants winning, but it wasn't a constant roster churn. You could actually say, okay, I know that guy. Like going to a restaurant and knowing what they're going to serve. You may not love McDonald's, but you know that if you're traveling, you know what a quarter pounder is going to generally taste like, or a cheeseburger, or whatever the case may be, or their fries. They're pretty consistent. When you go to the ballpark nowadays, it's like, who's off the roster? Who's on the roster? It's like if they change the menu every day. Wait a minute, I thought this was a steak joint. Yeah, we're going to do sushi now. So it's kind of hard to follow along at home. And I think there's a lot of different reasons we talk about why the attendance is down, but one of the reasons why is because, A, they don't win, and B, you don't know who the hell's playing. So it was cool last night to see Casey Schmidt. We'll get into that in a little bit later. Bottom of the hour, by the way, baseball talk with our good friend Kevin Friends. And Franny is in town, and it was funny because Casey Schmidt's, third or fourth at bat? I think it was fourth at bat, obviously, because he got out his first at bat, second at bat, home run, third at bat. single up the middle, and they flashed quickly a stat that said that Franny was the last Giants rookie debut to get 3 hits in a game. And Casey Schmidt didn't get a third hit. Then they showed Franny. By the way, new haircut for Franny, and they showed Franny up in the booth. So he's going to join us at 10:30. We'll talk a little bit about Casey Schmidt, MLB debuts, and he's a huge Warriors fan, so we'll get into that conversation with Franny at 10:30. And then 10:50, Sam Amick's going to join us. We'll get all into the Warriors and the Lakers tonight. And again, text line is open. I'd love to hear your thoughts about tonight's game, but the first one that comes to mind for me as far as the Warriors are concerned is I'm a little bit conflicted between the team that they've been and the team that they are. So in other words, the team that they've been, as we all know, multi-time champion. In situations like this, there's no question that the Warriors are going to win, right? In the past, championship DNA. We've talked about that all season long. One of the reasons I never jumped off the Warriors Titanic, even at the worst moments of the season. And I said I would be the violin player as everybody else was jumping off the boat. Very, very simply. I said this team has, and you've probably said the same thing, that even though consistently throughout the season I didn't see the play that the Warriors were accustomed to, losing on the road, poor execution down the stretch, all these different things the Warriors were doing all season long, but in the back of my mind, they have enough credibility in the closet where I'd say to myself, they're going to at some point be the Warriors. They're going to be this championship-level Warriors team. They will be that team. They will be that team. I kept saying that throughout the season, even though we saw rare occasions of it. Then you go to the Kings series, and that's exactly what that was. They win. Okay, they're terrible on the road during the regular season, but then they go to Sacramento and win twice, and you think to yourself, okay, they're back. The championship DNA, that kind of stuff, they were just kind of cruising through the season. They're a little bit older. Now that the playoffs are here, we're going to see the real Warriors, and we haven't. So that's one part of it. Is I've leaned on this championship DNA thought the entire season and thought to myself, well, they're going to win tonight because their backs are up against the wall, and a team with this kind of history is not going to have their season end on their home court against LeBron and the Lakers. That doesn't make any sense. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is reality, which is they had an opportunity in Game 6 against the Kings to get themselves some rest before this series, and they had to go up and win a Game 7 in Sacramento. That's not the old Warriors. They'd have blown out a young team like the Kings in Game 6, right? They had an opportunity late in the season against the Nuggets, big opportunity. All through the season, there was like, well, they got to win this one. They'll really show themselves. They got to win this one. They'll really show themselves. And for the most part, they didn't. They did in Game 7 in Sacramento, but a lot of times in the Game 6 here at Chase Center is the one that really sticks in my mind, is that was one that the old Warriors wouldn't have lost. The last time out, Game 4 against the Lakers, 12-point lead in the third quarter. That's not a game that the championship DNA Warriors would have lost. Klay Thompson wouldn't have played like that. So I'm conflicted as I look at this game tonight because part of me is optimistic and saying, wait a minute, I know that teams are 13 and 264 as far as being in a 1-3 hole, and we'll talk more about that as the show progresses because there are some interesting things about that 13 and 264. We got to delve into that a little bit, but I'd love to get your thoughts. Hit me up on the text line, and I'll read the best ones. One side of me says this is a championship DNA team, and this season and potentially, and we'll not get into that today because it's just we've got an entire offseason to do this. We're not going to get into what happens. We're not going to get into today Draymond Green could opt out. We're not going to get in today if Jordan Poole stinks again tonight, what's going to happen with his future. We're not going to get in today of Klay Thompson, earlier in the playoffs. He was talking about a max contract. That's not a max contract guy. What's going to happen to his future? So all those things are an entire offseason. But my question is, and we got a lot of different things we can attack on this thing today, but my major question is, how you feeling? Are you feeling championship DNA Warriors tonight, or are you saying this just isn't the same team? Because in the back of my mind, I do know this isn't the same team. I know it's Dre. I know it's Klay. I know it's Curry. But the only one playing up to those years is Steph Curry. And we found out in this series he can't do it alone. Now, I'm not saying he did it alone in Game 7 against Sacramento because Looney was great. There was other guys to contribute. But Steph Curry has taken this team on his back even at the age of 35 and been able to do it. I don't think he can do that against these Lakers. For somebody driving around right now or listening, first of all, thank you very much, and thinks if Steph just drops 50, we're fine. If Steph just does what he did in Game 7, against Sacramento were fine. I don't think he can do that against this team. I think he can do a lot. I think he can be the guy who distributes and had the triple-double the last time out. I don't know if he can get 50 against this team. But I also know that probably in and of itself wouldn't be enough. So what's just your general thought on how you feel? And then we'll delve into this 13-264 when they're 1-3. Steve Kerr said something that was really, really interesting to me, but I think a little bit too late, although who knows if this series ends up going 6 or 7 games. We'll talk about that as well. And there are a couple of pieces of silver lining in this whole thing for the Warriors as I was preparing for the show today. A couple of things that you want to know. So, again, hit me up on the text line. How you feeling? Is this championship DNA team, or is this team far different? You're holding your breath today against the Lakers. And then we have the entire offseason to talk about a number of different things. People are already talking about end of dynasty, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we can get into that. Franny's going to join us at the bottom of the hour at 10:30. Sam Amick is going to join us at 10:50. Don't miss any of those things, and we'll do it all coming up next on a Wednesday. It's Pop and Lund, only here on the Sports Leader.
Here's what's trending now.
Trending now
On KNBR.com.
The great Casey Schmidt shows what the future could bring in his Major League debut. Home run and a single. That story and more trending right now on the all-new KNBR app.
Dub Nation, filter out the noise and kick it with KNBR on the gram for everything blue and gold. Follow the sports leader on Instagram at KNBR.
There was definitely some gamesmanship, and I give them credit. If you can sell a call in this league and do it, then you do it, whatever it takes to win. The foul at 3:25 or so, pinned down on White, was really, really a tough call for us. Tough call. I mean, it's a blatant flop. He just takes a dive, and the ref bought it. And like I said, you give him credit, but you lament the fact that as a league, we're gonna reward that type of play with the game and the series, all that stuff at stake. You would hope that the officials would recognize when a guy just takes a dive.
Because I've been covering the NBA for about 25 years, and I've said this on the air before. One of my first assignments, Pop and Lund, by the way, Pop will be back tomorrow. One of my first assignments was Bulls and Jazz series, and this was back in the day where there wasn't so much diving and there was a lot more physicality. But one of the things that was consistent, because the Jazz with Jerry Sloan as the head coach and Greg Popovich, of course, with the Spurs, and Phil Jackson with the Bulls, and then later the Lakers, when I covered some of those series in the playoffs, they made it a point of emphasis, however the calls were made. And obviously there weren't the numbers that we have today and the ability to drill down into what we drill down into. They just looked at the free throw, and they didn't care how a certain team played or whatever the case may be. And if they were down in free throws, talking about Popovich, Jackson, Sloan, right away early in a series, they would try to, through the media, play the game of, we're not getting enough calls, and the free throw discrepancy. And in the Bulls case, if you're playing Jordan, it was, Jordan's getting all these calls, and Karl Malone's too physical, and all these different things would happen. And then it would seem, at least, that the momentum would flip a little bit. Maybe the free throws get a little bit closer, and that's the game that Steve Kerr is playing. And we'll get into it a little bit later as the show progresses today. Look, I think that the game right now, and this is not – look, I hope the Warriors win tonight because it's good for business. I'm not saying this from a standpoint of being a fan or a standpoint of just purely looking at a free throw discrepancy, because I have a theory on all this stuff, which is, a lot of times we don't like to blame the guys that we cheer for every single night, and the guy that is on the court that we can really get after is the guy wearing the stripes. And so it's got to be the official's fault, right? Because it can't be our guy's fault, can't be my guy's fault, can't be the guy's fault of the jersey that I'm wearing. It's definitely on the referees, and this is all fan bases. I'm not particularly pointing anybody out, and it's all sports. This is the way it is. That umpire sucks. That referee sucks. That call was bad. It happens all the time. But Steve is playing an old game, which I thought he should have played earlier on in the series, which is, hey, let's curry some favor on our part to kind of get the officials down the middle. Now, as we well know, during the season, the Lakers had the most free throws, and the Warriors committed the most fouls, and that's the way that it's been. But for tonight, the two things, and then we'll get more into what Steve Kerr said and the way that the game is played right now a little bit later. But what he's trying to do is obviously even up the number, which last game actually against the Lakers, and this is why I think it was a missed opportunity, and I'm not saying that they can't come back from 1-3, but it was a missed opportunity because at least for this series, being minus 11 at the free throw line, which they were, and I don't care about attempts, I care about makes, because I look at a box score and I say, where are you plus and where are you minus? Well, they were minus 11 on the free throw line in their losses. It's obviously been a major deal. It's just been as many as minus 20, which means that the Warriors' big advantage, which is at the three-point line, they've got to overcome that with more threes to even it out, keep the thing even close, and make sure that the Lakers don't parade to the free throw line. And I believe what the Warriors, they were down like 9-3, I think, at the half as far as makes, and they didn't get their first free throw attempts until Steph Curry got one. I think it was like the 103, 104 mark of the first half. So I completely get it, and I know what Steve Kerr's doing. I guess just because we played the sound coming in, I'll address it now. I'm surprised he didn't do it earlier, because he played for Greg Popovich and he played for Phil Jackson, and Steve was in those series in which every single time those coaches would say something about officiating, even if it was 6 or 7 different free throws. Oh, they got to the line more. You didn't really have the analytics of, look at this team got this many times. It just wasn't talked about. It was just a general statement after the games that those coaches would use to try to even up the free throws. Now, I don't think, because this is the way the league is played right now, I don't think that anything's going to change as far as the flops and the fakes and the acting and all that kind of stuff. And to me, That's a lot. That needs to be changed, not because the Warriors aren't getting the calls in this series. These are styles, and the Lakers get calls and the Warriors don't, and there's a reason for that. But my point is that it's kind of like the new rules that happened in baseball this year. I didn't like them at the beginning, but now I understand the flow of the game is so much better. It's aesthetically pleasing. I'm watching at home. It's a quicker game. It's a better game. I think we can all kind of agree to that at this point. Maybe there's a few that are still around going, yeah, you know what, I like the pace. I don't like a clock. I understand. I don't like a clock in baseball necessarily. I like that it's the only sport that doesn't have one, but I am watching the game now and I'm saying, you know what, it is a better game. Well, the constant stopping and slowing of the game, which for a team like the Warriors, this is where the real rubber hits the road here. Okay, you're upset because they're not getting the calls, and you look at it and it's minus 20 in makes or minus 11 in makes or minus 16 in makes, which have been the numbers in the Lakers' wins. But what it does for a team that is rhythmic like the Warriors, want to move the ball, they're going to shoot, they want to get into a rhythm, they don't want to play a stop-and-start game, is that the fouls stop everything, and now you got to restart things, and the Warriors aren't in a rhythm. And the worst part of the Lakers' defense, they're good in the half court. The worst part of their defense is in transition. They don't transition well. You'll often see LeBron James, despite getting all the calls, bitch and moan on one end and not even make it past half court, or Anthony Davis fall down and jog his way up court, and they've got a 4-on-3 or a 5-on-4, whatever the case may be. But if you're pulling it out of the basket, you're not going to be able to get out on the break. You're not going to be able to get into a rhythm. So those are the offshoots of the free throws. It's not just the free throws. It's what it does, and Steve's trying to get things in his favor. But the way that the game is called right now, which is flailing, faking, diving, those things are rewarded in the league. And I'm not saying they need to change the rules because the Warriors aren't getting the benefit of doubt, so the Warriors have a different style of play where they clearly don't coach that. I mean, those who are not Warriors fans may not agree with this. Look, everybody flails and flops to a certain extent, but the Lakers have decided, look, this is what we're going to do. This is part of what we do, and you can't get mad at them about it because they're just looking at the rules of the game and saying this is getting rewarded. And they are in Hollywood, so I don't know, they bring in somebody, this is how you flop, this is how you flail, this is how you get a call. They're playing by the rules. You can't fault them for it because they're getting rewarded. Anyway, Dennis Schroeder, I know he disagreed with it. I'm just saying from a baseball standpoint, take a page out of baseball. Stop stopping the game. It's not fun to watch. And it's frustrating for everybody, not just for Warriors fans, for everybody, because they're getting rewarded for it. And players are going, why wouldn't I do this? Why wouldn't I get free trips to the free throw line like James Harden did against the Celtics last night, flopping, flailing? And I do think there were rules about it back in the day, but I guess they just don't do that anymore. Anyway, thoughts, 415-808-5627, 415-808-KNBR. We can continue that conversation as well. And I want to ask you the question. Great stuff coming on the text line. What I'll do is I'll talk to Kevin Franzen coming up next. Then we have Sam Amick from The Athletic, who does a tremendous job covering the NBA at 10:50. And then I'll get to some of these texts. Again, 808-5627, 415-808-5627. Thoughts on the game. How much confidence do you have that this is the Warriors team with the championship DNA versus the Warriors team that many times during the season you said to yourself, well, they got to have this one. This is the Warriors. This is Clay and Dre and Steph. This is the team that won the championship last year. They're going to win this one. They didn't. Oh, they're going to win Game 6 against Sacramento in the first round because then they can get some they didn't. Now, they did win Game 7. But I've been wrestling with that all season long. So we're going to continue that conversation. Some great stuff coming on the text line, and we'll get into that. But coming up next, we'll talk to our good friend Kevin Franzen, who was shown last night during the broadcast on NBC Sports Bay Area, because he is I'll tell you this next. I'll tell you why they showed him, and I'll tell you what graphic Casey Schmidt didn't get to, but almost did. And we'll discuss that with Franny, plus Franny's big Warriors fan, so we're going to do a little Warriors talk as well and his confidence level against the Lakers tonight. Franny's doing, by the way, analyst work for the Nationals, so that's why we're having him on. We'll get into that conversation coming up next, only here on the Sports Leader.
Be caller 10 to 415-896-KNBR for your chance to win a pair of tickets to see your Giants take on the Phillies Tuesday, May 16th. First pitch, 6:45. Presented by Toyota, the MVP of MPG, with class-leading MPG and more hybrids than any other brand. Toyota, let's go places.
Listen to the sports leader anywhere, anytime. Download the all-new KNBR app. We are your proud home of Giants baseball. KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM.
Right-handed hitter. He swings. It's a high drive. Left center field. It is gone! Home run, Casey Schmidt. In his first game and his second at bat. His first big league hit is a homer. And they're having a party in the Schmidt section.
They did have a party in the Schmidt section, and it was large. Casey Schmidt with a home run in his second at bat, later at a single, and there was a graphic up there for a moment that said that the last Giants rookie to have 3 hits in his MLB debut was our next guest, Kevin Franzen, who now is TV analyst for the Nationals, and we were texting earlier today, and the flow is good, man. They showed you after that graphic.
Thanks.
The flow's good, man. High level.
I mean, it has to be, right?
Yeah, you're on
It
TV
has to
like
be.
what are you on TV like 150 games, all of them? What?
Yeah, but we're
Ton.
it's like 100.
That
I think
look
it's
good.
150 minutes. I think it's 150 minutes total because like it's just the Open. That's it.
Oh yeah, that's
I don't-
true.
yeah.
That's a good point.
Yes.
Still,
That's not anything else. How
But
you
I mean,
been,
you know,
man?
I'm great. I mean, I'm great. What's
You're by
what's not
yourself.
to love?
You're great.
Yeah, it's great, man. You know, my vocal cords are already tired. I talked more in the first 10 minutes than I do in 4 hours normally. So yeah, things are good today. Things are just relaxing. It's laid back today. Very nice.
Yeah,
How you doing?
yeah.
What's going on? How's things?
Watching. So I watched enough, spring training this year. I don't know
Yeah.
about you. When
Yeah.
it came to the games and the flow of it, with the pitch clock,
Sure.
I was watching more spring training games. And so then I got locked in on Casey Schmidt. And I had known about him since he played San Diego State because they were playing against San Jose State quite often. And Brad Sanfilippo, the coach over at San Jose State, always thought, this guy's one hell of a player. And you're going, oh, my God. All right, so you watch him, you keep watching him, you watch him in spring, and he was dominating. I was so pissed on SiriusXM, Channel 89 when I do the MLB shows.
When do you do those?
Because he got
Plug it.
Saturday mornings. Yeah,
Oh,
Saturday
very
morning,
nice.
7
I
a.m. to
enjoy
10,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Me and Chris Jimenez from Gilroy. We
really
do it.
good. Yep.
You've listened once. That's okay.
No,
Anyway,
I listen all the time. I just don't text you all the time. Like I often yell at yell at you on my radio like other people do. So now I know how it feels.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
The thing with him was that like he was just different. Like you saw it, and you're like, this guy's different. Like there's certain prospects that come up. Like you saw the video. Like if you're watching the game, you saw a video of me when I was a rookie. I'm like, I was tiny. I was like, there was nothing physical. Like balls coming to my bat and it's just going right there.
Right.
Hits, but they're just like little doinks. And you're going, great. This kid's first hack, and you're like, damn. Like he fouled it back the first pitch that he saw, and I was like, that's the damage. Like that's the damage swing that you're hoping to see. Out of a rookie, out of someone that is a top prospect, like Anthony Volpe, right? With the Yankees, takes a hack, and you're like, yes. Like he plays that. I don't know. There's a swag by Casey Schmidt that you look at and you're going, I get it, and I saw it, and I'm seeing it now live, and I'm happy for him.
All right, so my thought is, and look, this takes time, and we all know that. You're going through the same thing with the Nationals, and Bay Area fans because you're from here. They're just looking for hope right now, and it's a tough time because you had all that group of guys, and everybody knew them, and you came to the park, and it was familiar. It was like a Big Mac at McDonald's. You knew what you were going to get every single night, and it was consistent. Now they're just looking for some hope, and I know it gets frustrating for fans, the roster churn and who's playing tonight and everything. But for one glorious night, and it's a major league debut, which you know well. The kid hits a home run and there's buzz, and it's the first time that they've developed a position player, this group with Farhan, where they go, they draft the guy and now you see him, and there was all this buzz in spring training. So it was a big deal at the ballpark last night. Giants games, you've been to a ton of them. What did it feel like?
Different than years past. Just for the fact that you could understand and actually feel the true excitement for a player. I don't think any debut is going to be greater than Timmy's against the Phillies in 07 on Sunday Night Baseball. That was one of the coolest nights. Even though we lost, it still was one of the coolest nights to be a part of. Playing third base for that game, just to understand who Timmy is and what that, expectation was from, I feel like us, the players, because we had seen it in the minor leagues, right? And then the fans obviously having it. So not a very big crowd last night, but vocal when he came up. And it got louder. And, I feel like when he grounded out that first time, people are like, oh, that's not like your normal ground. That's not a normal ground out. That's a pretty damn good swing. And then the next one, he just pummeled that ball to left center field, and you're like, damn, okay. And this place started picking up the energy, and every time he kept coming up, it's like the energy got bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're like, that's the debut that you want to see in field, because it's not like one of those guys came out of nowhere. I came out of nowhere. I was a Bay Area kid, but I came out of nowhere for this to happen. This is a kid that was drafted with the intent to be in the big leagues at some point soon, right? In general, and he's hit his way. He's done everything right. And so as the hope for a franchise, that's great. But it's again, you made the mention of it. It's the consistency of a lineup, the consistency of a roster is not there. And that's what you jump on. And people are going to, that's not how we do it. It's whatever. People jump on board with stars. They jump on board with, great play on the field. And great play on the field doesn't mean 160 different lineups in 162 games. It's just they want fans are accustomed to a certain way, a certain look that you could try to change up all you want, but I still think that if you don't have the player that people can gravitate towards, then why are they showing up?
Right. Kevin Franzen joining us. Franny, of course, Bay Area guy. He's analyst on TV for the Washington Nationals and Giants Day Baseball over at Oracle Park this afternoon. Sean and I will get the ball against Josiah Gray. It's interesting how you say that, because what's happening is, and the Giants are trying to do this, but it worked so well a couple of years ago when they won 107 that you got the matchups and you left, right, you manipulate all those things. But teams are going to more of an everyday lineup, and I think that's where Giants fans get frustrated, because they see this roster churn, especially at the bottom, and I don't know who Cal Stevenson is, and I don't know who Brett Wisely is, and it's especially after all those years. But if you start looking at this thing, okay, Casey Schmidt might be a guy, and Kyle Harrison now is kind of getting his control under him, and he might be a guy. And now, these prospects that we've heard of, Patrick Bailey is playing a little bit better. He's been promoted. So, look, I know that they're getting frustrated, but you are seeing some guys come up, and that's for now. And maybe I'm speaking at it, maybe I'm wrong for Giants fans, but for now, I think teams, and you're in this very same boat with the Nationals, they just want to see progress. They just want to see some guys that they can relate to. They want to see that in the future it's going to happen. And I think some of the frustration here has been, where's our guys? The Dodgers every year are bringing up guys, and the Cardinals every year are bringing up guys, and it's like, where are our guys? And I think Casey Schmidt represented that last night.
Right, but there's been talk, right? Luciano being one of those, Elliot
right, there you
being
go.
another. That for years it's been those guys, and they never stepped up to, or not never have. They haven't yet stepped up to what that label was. And see, there's that part where, you and I have talked about this plenty before about the promotion of players and how do you not only the development, but when you promote them to the fans, you gotta be careful with it, right? Because the moment you label these guys as the can't miss and do all this, and I'm not saying the Giants did, I'm saying throughout baseball, fans gravitate towards that, and then they don't live up to it, and you're like, see, they can't develop. But there's a bigger process to that. I feel like if Luciano or Ramos by now had been healthy enough and come up and done something, I feel like people would actually, because of all the talk, they would jump on board even more. I think that's a part of it. Does it they can't control the injury part with Marco, right? That's a big thing. Look, again, we see it with Washington, and we're seeing some great play as far as at times from our young guys. There's going to be a big development process, but developing, you brought the one team up that is better than everybody at doing it, and that's the Dodgers. I mean, you think about all the stuff they've lost in the years past, and guess what? They're still number one in baseball in the farm system. And it's different with them because it's most teams you'd be like, oh, their prospects are great. Fine, prospects to do what? This and that. Dodgers have prospects, you're like, all right, who? Right? Because you're going, they're coming up to the big leagues and doing damage at some point. Look at James Outman, right? What are they going to develop? What's the next thing? And that's the part that you want to get yourself to. The other thing that the Dodgers do, they pay their minor league coaches better than anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody. They get the best. They keep the best. They have the best because they pay those guys or girls in so many ways. Because why? Because they know to develop, you got to have the people behind it to help, do that. And again, that's all over baseball. Do people have the right people behind it to develop the kids? When you're trying to create the system, when you're trying to create the depth that you're trying to create. And so that's going to be the big question. Casey Schmidt, awesome. Good for that's great for the Giants and the development system. That's a pat on the back. Now it's not who's next, right? It can't stop. One guy doesn't do it. It's got to be multiple people. As one guy goes down, one guy got to come up and take over and take care of his opportunities.
Kevin Franzen joining us, of course, TV analyst for the Nationals Giants this afternoon right here on the Sports Leader. You're a huge Warriors fan. What do you think tonight, man? Does the season end or championship DNA? Championship DNA. What do you think they do tonight?
I think they win. I think because they got to keep the streak alive, right? Winning a game on the road.
Yeah, they'd be 29 in a row, so they got to keep it going. Then they can go back to LA.
Yes, and they got to get an opportunity to do it. That's all I care about. They got to get an opportunity to go out there and do it in LA. The Lakers are, man, talking about turning the page on an entire season during the trade deadline. They did just that. So I don't know. I'm very down on Jordan Poole. I've been down on him since he was a rookie. I don't even care about his transformation. It's just he's just a downer, man. He's a downer. He's like wah wah wah. Right? Like I'm used to like looking at the bench for years, and the bench guys are going ape. You know what?
Yep.
When guys are doing stuff, and now it's like all calm. Like there's like moments where you see it, but like I feel like he just brings all those guys down. I hope he steps up at some point and changes my narrative on that.
Well, I just like tonight. They got to get him going somewhat. He can't give you a complete zero. I guess he could, and you could still win, but that means that there's so much pressure on everybody else. He's just got to give you something. Right. I don't expect him to be, 2022 Jordan Poole where, I'm not saying he was great. He was good. He was good in the playoffs. He was 17
really
points. He shot 50% from the field. They got to get something out of the guy. My God, man.
I don't even care about the offensive side. His defense is putrid.
It's. Well, that's why he becomes unplayable because if he's giving you nothing offensively, then defensively you can't play him.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Well, again, someone else has to step up other than Steph because the greatness of Steph has just grown and grown and grown and grown because of what he's done just throughout his career. But like the consistency, and then he keeps getting better, and you're going, oh, Game 7, let's put up 50, and you're like, this guy's unbelievable. Like someone step up and help him, and it's just like I feel like this is going to be the greatest challenge they've ever had. It's going to be like, if they get through this and they go 7, and to win it, obviously, if the Western Conference Finals is going 7, the NBA Finals is going 7. They're going to play the most games they ever played. It's going to be one of those epic runs that they've ever had. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm going to hope to will it there. I tried to get the Pizzagate thing happening at our hotel with the Lakers, but it didn't happen. With Jordan, so with LeBron, my goodness.
All right,
Dude, hey, by the way, like, because you're not really that tall, so like if you got in that elevator, and you saw a couple of, and you got in the elevator with some of these NBA guys, like some of the coaching staff, and you're like, good God, you're huge.
Oh, dude, my moment in that was I was a very young reporter, and in Portland. What they do is the players from the visiting locker room have to walk. Well, they don't have to, but it's a shortcut through to the court to where the media eats. And so I was in line one time, and Shaq was playing a joke. He came in, he was with the Lakers, and he popped into the media food line. And I turned around to talk to somebody who I thought was behind me, and it was Shaq. And it was unbelievable. It just like, because, you cover football players and stuff. They're more wide than tall or, whatever.
Right, right.
Just monstrous, man. I just turned around and looked at him like his hands. Just a monstrous person. He literally could just, with one hand, split me right in half.
You were the size of his foot.
Right.
You're the size of his foot.
Oh,
Yeah,
I remember
22 and a
looking
half.
down at his feet, just like, we're not even the same thing. Like, this isn't even, you know what I mean? I'm like a small poodle to this guy or something. I mean, seriously. It's ridiculous.
God, you're more Chihuahua. You're more Chihuahua.
See, now, I don't know how this always turns into, taking shots at me, but whatever. If that makes you feel better about yourself, that's fine.
Hey, I don't take shots at you. I didn't take shots at you.
You come on the show. I tell you got great flow with the hair. I like the haircut. It's looking nice. Saw the pictures of you. I was watching my son's back from college. We're watching the Giants game last night. He's all excited. He sees your name. They pop up to the booth. You got a lot of love in our house last night. You just,
hey,
take
Georgie
shots.
Georgie survived ASU for a year. That takes bad.
Dude, I sent you some pictures. It's unbelievable. I would have flunked out first semester. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Anyway,
that is a guarantee. That is a guarantee.
No way you
that
can't
is a very
focus.
accurate statement by you.
Can't focus down there. It's ridiculous. All right, man. Tell me one thing I can use in Diamond Notes today about your Washington Nationals. Give me. I got to do Diamond Notes today. Give me one thing about the Nationals I can use. What do you got? Got something for me?
Josiah Gray has been really good this year. He's changed over a lot of things. But how about this for a Diamond Note?
Yeah.
You know what his average movement on his slider is?
Of course I don't. No, I don't.
0. It's a bullet. It's a bullet.
Wow.
He literally throws a slider more than anything, and it's a bullet. It doesn't move at all. It's seriously a 0. That's fascinating to me because people always like that are hitters are going, if someone could develop a backup slider, like, and just throw it nonstop. Wow. Like that to me is the greatest pitch ever, and he's found a way to throw the 0 movement slider.
Very nice. I'll use that.
Yep.
Nice.
There you go.
All
Yep.
right, my friend. Good to catch up with you, man. Hope all is well. Hope
Absolutely.
the family's well.
Come to the yard after the game. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. I'll do it.
All right.
I got nothing to do. Life.
Let's go. Prove it.
All right, man.
Prove it. Later.
Talk to you later. Thanks. That is Kevin. That's Kevin Franzen with the Nationals on the TV side of things. And, yeah, he was the last Giants rook in his Major League debut to get 3 hits. Casey Schmidt tried, got to 2. Still a great night at the yard. We'll get back to that. We got a lot of Diamond Notes, but let's talk to Sam Amick coming up next. A national perspective of Warriors and Lakers. Can the Warriors at least get this thing back to L.A.? There is some good news on that front. We'll get into it next with Sam, only here on the Sports Leader.
Dub Nation, wherever you are around the globe, stream Gold Blooded Radio 24/7, 365 on KNBR.com. This is the sports leader.
It's the reminder that one game changes everything. I mean, it really does. And all you have to do is focus on the game and, do your job, go out there, let it rip. If you play well enough and you get a win, the whole vibe of the series changes. And that happens throughout the 7 games. It's just from one game to the next.
Of course, that is Steve Kerr yesterday with Tolbert and Cope says the Warriors, a must-win game. Steve said the other night wasn't a must-win game, but it is certainly a must-win game over a Chase tonight as they find themselves in a 1-3 hole against the Lakers. Let's talk to Sam Amick about it, of course. Great senior NBA writer for The Athletics. Got a great piece up right now that you probably don't want to you do want to read it because it's great, but it's about the Lakers' defense and the great job anchored by Anthony Davis they've made in the turnaround. Sam_Amick, and Sam joins us courtesy of the Uma Guest Line. Hi, Sam.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. We appreciate it. So here's the quandary that I find myself in looking at the Warriors. All season long, I've had this faith in them, not unshakable faith, but faith in general because of what they've done in the championship DNA. But numerous times throughout the year, and the last being Game 6 against the Kings at home, you think that this team is certainly going to close them out, and it took a Game 7 to do that. And numerous other times throughout the year, I scratch my head going, wait a minute. And you come to the conclusion that, okay, the players are generally the same, but this just isn't the same team. So, I mean, how do you look at these guys going into a game like that from this standpoint of part of you says, well, this is championship DNA, but there is a lot of times this year where that hasn't really shown itself when you thought it should have.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing right now is that, it's just not – the DNA is still there, but the cohesion, the synergy, and I think the spirit, like from top to bottom, that you need to have this time of year is not where it was a year ago around this time. And we, that championship run obviously caught us off guard, didn't necessarily see it coming, but you had, things that were very, very different back then than they are now. The ascension of Jordan Poole as opposed to the regression, the return of Klay Thompson, and having a really good postseason run, whereas he's going a bit up and down at the moment. And that list is long. And I think, if you go back to that Kings series and the piece that our guys, Marcus Thompson and Shams Charania had reported on, Steph's kind of infamous pregame 7 speech, it was a great tale to tell in victory where they beat the Kings, and you learn that Steph had told everybody, don't get on the bus unless you're, if you're in your feelings. And it worked for that series. But I think what we're seeing in real time is that this whole group is still navigating its feelings. And I think internally it's having a tricky time.
Sam, as far as who starts, I mean, it did work. JaMychal Green, one of the games it worked. GP2, that seemed like it worked. What does Steve Kerr do tonight as far as his starters go?
It's been crazy because it's I never hesitate to poke fun at us in the media and how often we get it wrong. Like JaMychal Green, when that move happened, we snickered on press row in Game 1, and he hit, or whatever game it was, and he hit a bunch of threes, and it worked. Gary Payton the other night, I for sure told a colleague of mine that I felt like Steve was throwing stuff against the wall at this point, and it was a sign that the Lakers were kind of getting the better of them, and he played well. Now, we didn't see him much in the fourth, and that was a talking point. But tonight, I don't know what the correction is because Kevon Looney is, he's been much more average than he was in the past series. Draymond, I know he's a champion, a 4-time champion, a future Hall of Famer. I think the coaching staff's got to connect with Draymond when it comes to, being an offensive liability is one thing, but the way that he is, doing a 180 every time he gets near the rim is something that I think is just opening them up in ways that are causing problems. But to your question, lineup-wise, we'll see. Gary, again, had moments, slowed D'Angelo Russell down at the beginning. But I feel like, every time out these days, we're seeing something new.
I know this is a crazy theory, and it just leads me into talking about Jordan Poole, which we need to do in Clay.
Yep.
Obviously, in a game like this, you're not going to give anybody a whole lot of rope, but I didn't think at this point we'd be talking about Jordan Poole as one of those players. I mean, he's a core player of this team, and it's kind of like, okay, these guys are going to play, but who plays around him? And then all of a sudden he's played his way in these playoffs into a situation in which if he's not good right out of the gate, you just can't play him because he's such a liability on the defensive end. Is there any thought to maybe starting him because he's been better from the start, or do you just bring him in at some point, and if he doesn't have it again and he's turning it over, and then he's not in the rotation and they got to do something else?
No, my answer to that last question, Jordan, came to mind. I mean, it's easy for me to say because it's high-stakes poker right now.
Yep.
But, that would be the dramatic move, is you send a message to Jordan that essentially, like, you know what, we're going to count on you. Like, you are part of this program. We know that you have sacrificed to come off the bench. I mean, listen, I know he's got a massive contract, but, he's a starter-level player for a lot of teams. And if that's where he feels the most confident, the most empowered, the most supported, even if it's just for a night in a must-win game, and you talk about crystallizing your possible future with the team, like it's all or nothing. You know what I mean? Like if it backfires, then you're probably trading him in the summer. And if he steps up to the moment and then within that, maybe heals some of the wounds that appear to be happening between him and the group, then maybe you're on your way and you salvage this relationship, because it never ceases to amaze me this time of year. Like these games are so much more important for all these guys and their individual trajectories. And you could have done wonderful things all throughout the regular season. But look at Phoenix right now. DeAndre Ayton is like writing his own ticket out of town with the way that he's playing in that Suns Nuggets series, just to give a quick example. But, yeah, I think the Jordan thing would be fascinating. If Austin Reeves comes out and gives you 10 first-quarter points because, he's attacking Jordan on the defensive end, then you're going to look silly for having done it. But that's a possible move.
And let me just bring up something that you were just saying. Sam Amick is joining us. Sam_Amick, and of course, senior writer for the NBA writer for The Athletic, as we get you ready for the do or die game tonight over at Chase Center between the Lakers and the Warriors. You're right about that in terms of the playoffs, because it is so during the season, it's just been marginalized because, not as many guys are playing, and especially in the Western Conference. Who cares about your record? Just get in. We're seeing that with the Lakers at a 7 and the Warriors at a 6, and it's all about the playoffs, and that determines everything. So Budenholzer is out in Milwaukee. If a player struggles in the playoffs, he's out. And we're seeing it with Julius Randle. We're seeing it with Jordan Poole. We're seeing all of a sudden it's like we don't care what you do to regular season, and it's kind of been that always to an extent, but certainly not to this level. But it blows my mind that just Milwaukee can have the kind of season it has, and then boom, he's out. Yeah,
I mean that one we saw unfold. Not as dramatic, but, Boston comes to mind.
Right.
If they fall short, Jaylen Brown's, a fantastic player regardless. But if they have a choice to make this summer, if he makes an All-NBA team, he gets a Supermax extension potentially. But if they decide that's not the road they want to go down, then, that's going to be dictated by what happens in these playoffs, and they're behind Philly right now. Then next thing you know, maybe Jaylen is playing elsewhere and they're doing something different. So, that like you said, that has always been the case. It does feel augmented this year, and even for positive too. Certain right now is answering the bell when it comes to questions about playoff performers and looking like a guy that was very worthy of the last 2 MVPs. But that's what makes it fun. Is just night to night you're seeing kind of legacies being either built or broken down.
All right, so Jordan Poole's an easy scapegoat. That's kind of been the entire season for the Warriors with him. But Klay Thompson's a different story. Everybody loves Klay, but he's struggling, and obviously Steph needs a supporting cast. I don't think he's coming out and scoring 50. This is just a different type of a team that the Lakers have, especially defensively. So is Klay putting pressure on himself because this is the Lakers and he was so excited? Is this just bad timing? He's just not shooting it well? How do you decipher what's going on with him?
Well, I mean, it's again, Jekyll and Hyde is kind of the story for a lot of guys this time of year. And Klay's running into some of that. I mean, it was 2 games ago. I think he was 8 of 11 overall, and hit a bunch of threes, and it was fantastic. And that's the guy they need tonight. That's the guy. I mean, again, I've already mentioned Draymond. Now we're talking about Klay.
Yep.
The one thing that the Warriors cannot afford to kind of endure if they're going to survive is the OGs coming up short. And right now, 2/3 of them, Draymond's had a lot of good moments, but, we're, again, the snarky press row types, like we're watching that game 4, and not to put him out there, but colleague Sean Powell from NBA.com was just beside himself at the degree to which Draymond was, wide open in the paint. And it's one thing if you're finding a guy going from a good shot to a great shot. That wasn't the case. So, Draymond, not being at his best, Clay not being at his best. I don't know. Within all that, John, the LA environment, for whatever reason, of course, has been pretty tough on the Warriors. And even conversely, having covered the Lakers in depth for a very long time, that energy, there's a team that won a championship 3 years ago when there were no fans in the building and really kind of cut into the relationship between LeBron and Laker Nation because they didn't enjoy that ride with him because they weren't there. So that energy in games 3 and 4 in LA it was not, like Boston in game 6 last year, but it was different and it was a lot. And I certainly think the Warriors are going to respond better to being at home tonight.
All right, and I don't think we're piling on the Warriors when we say this. I do look at this. There is a bit of a silver lining to it. Now, they haven't played to this level, but this sounds like the way we've talked about the Warriors all season long but this is the final stand. So, you look tonight, they are favored by 7 now, whether they win that or not. But if they do, then essentially it comes down to a game 6 in L.A. because if you're an optimist Warriors fan, 2 of these 3 games would be a Chase Center. So essentially it comes down to if you can win tonight, then it comes down to all the marbles for a game 6 because then conceivably then there's a ton of pressure on the Lakers for game 7. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. I understand it's 13 and 264 all time, but how do you see the rest of the series if they can get this one tonight?
It's funny. I love the question. I think I'm officially at that point where it's legitimately anything possible for me. Like, to give you a quick side story, I had a choice to make after the Warriors went down 3-1 because I'm generally Western Conference heavy with our national coverage. And the choice was, do I want to bail on this series and jump over to Denver Phoenix? And I chose not to because I just watched the Warriors beat the Kings 3 times in a row in the first round and generally feel like, especially a dynasty, a 4-time champion, like you just can't tell me that they're intimidated by the idea of having to go on a 3-game winning streak, which is a different way of putting it. But, that is not that outside of the realm of possibility. And I understand the history, but these Lakers could run into an Anthony Davis who doesn't play aggressively offensively. They could run into an Anthony Davis who falls down and gets hurt because he's had that happen quite a bit. Or LeBron looking old. There's all kinds of doors that might open that could give the Warriors that opportunity. And then the home court advantage aspect of that is just massive because, like, you just kind of laid it out. Like, you win that game in LA, if you can get to a game 6, then all of a sudden all those historical numbers are back in your favor. I saw the Warriors do it in the OKC series that everybody forgets about, the conference finals before they collapsed against Cleveland in the finals in 2016. So they really have kind of seen everything, done everything, and this is still possible and on the table for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just like I said, it's, you look at it, and I know that fans talk like that, but I look at it and go, well, if they could and this team could pull it off, and obviously everybody's talked about this, LeBron did it to them, they'd love to do it back, but whatever, that's a long way from right now. By the way, I just saw this morning when it comes to Klay Thompson. I don't know if you fit this in anything. So Klay's struggling. His brother Trace with the Dodgers is in an 0 for 25. The Thompsons are struggling right now.
They are. It's funny you mentioned that. So, small world type thing.
Yeah.
Lon Rosen, who's the Dodgers executive.
Sure. Yep.
But formerly Magic Johnson's agent, and if anybody watched the HBO show Winning Time, part of the group that came up with Jeannie Buss and Linda Rambis and the Lakers of yore. Lon was actually at the Warriors game for game 2 and also down in LA. And I had chatted with him about Klay's brother and some of his struggles. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see if the Thompsons can get out of the funk. Meanwhile, you got Pops, Michael Thompson calling the games on Radio Row. That component has been, very unique. Before Game 4, I saw Klay talking to James Worthy and having a little chat with an OG from Lakerland. So, we'll see where Klay's at tonight, but a lot going on there.
Absolutely. Sam, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, John. Thanks, man. Be good.
Take care. Yeah, you too. Sam Amick, senior NBA writer for The Athletic, got a great piece on the Lakers transforming their defense. Check that out, @Sam_Amick. Writes a ton of great stuff on the NBA. You cannot miss him, and he's a must-follow on social media. We'll get into a few of the things Sam said there. And again, I don't, as you look at this as a fan, and this is like I said at the top of the show, where kind of my quandary comes in, is I look at this team and I just logically off the top of my head, and look, teams that have, and this is a dynasties like that, the Spurs, the Patriots, the Warriors, these kind of things, modern day. I'm not talking about the Celtics in the 60s because so many different things are different from those days, but they've all had dirt thrown on them. Tom Brady had dirt thrown on him many times, and Tim Duncan in that group before they got Kawhi Leonard, they got, oh, look, Tony Parker's old and Ginobili's old, and they got dirt thrown on them. And at some point it does end, there's no question about it, but logically I'm just saying to myself, and again, I'm going back to championship DNA talk, do I logically see the Warriors ending potentially at home against LeBron? I just don't. Now, could they? Sure. But so many things, for example, Klay Thompson going out like this, I just don't see it. Jordan Poole, who is, as we were talking with Sam, has been a scapegoat for a lot of the issues for the Warriors. And look, he's been horrible in this series, and he doesn't play good defense. But one of the things that I'm sure they're kicking around today is, okay, who is our fifth starter? And while starting isn't nearly as important as the final 5 minutes if it's a close game, and finishing, that's the lineup that you really focus on in NBA games. Okay, 5 minutes left, close game, who's in? That shows you who a coach trusts. But starting does matter because for certain guys in their confidence level. GP2 did make a mark last game even though they didn't win. JaMychal Green had a couple of early threes and pulled Anthony, didn't really pull him out, but forced a little bit of a change for the Lakers in game 2 and their lone win in the series. So it has been important in getting guys off. And I know as illogical as it sounds because he's been so bad, that starting Jordan Poole doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Now, Kevon Looney I don't think he's going to start. I just don't think this is a series. We talk about it all the time. The difference between regular season, many of the differences, but one of the main differences regular season to playoffs is every series is different. So Kevon Looney, even though he's had a sickness, he was dominant in the Kings series because the matchup favored him. And he comes into this series, and with Anthony Davis and the type of things in this series going on, it's not really a match for him, even if he was healthy. The one big thing did work in Game 2. There's a lot of different things, but by this point of a series, going into Game 5, there are some changes that can be made, but a lot of them have been made, and then you're adjusting off that, and it's constant and consistent. But Jordan Poole has been better as a starter, and you got to find a way to give him confidence, because to have him score no points or to have him continue to struggle like this, now maybe that's what happens. But there are certain players on your roster, and Steph is obviously one, and Dre is one, and Clay is one, and Wiggins is one, no matter how he's playing, where, look, it's the team you got. And so you've got to play those guys. And just saying Jordan Poole can't do it, and let's go to DiVincenzo, or let's go to Moody, or let's go – look, I'm with you, man. Or the people screaming for Kuminga. There's just no trust with Kuminga. He's not playing tonight. He's not. But Poole's been a guy who's done it in the past, so they are going to go to him at some point. So why not go to him and sit down with him, because this game is so psychological, and go, dude, we still do believe in you. You're going to start tonight. Now, look, he's horrible on the defensive end, so if he's giving you nothing offensively, we've consistently said this in the series, then, like Sam said at the beginning, then all of a sudden they're going to hunt him on the one end. They are going to try to deepen his lack of confidence. They're going to try to crush him. D'Angelo Russell could get off. Now, he was 1 for 10 last game, but again, they put GP2 in. So maybe GP2 is back in the lineup. The thing I did find peculiar, if they did have the confidence in GP2, then as I pointed out, it's how you finish, not how you start. Well, Moses Moody was on the floor at the end. When Lonnie Walker was going off, I just thought maybe as a changeup, not maybe, as a changeup as he's crushing you, GP2, that's why you made the trade. That's why you gave up on James Wiseman. So that you could say, hey, you know what? This guy's going to help us in that exact situation, and they didn't put him in. So how much confidence do they have in him? Again, start finishing over starting, but as far as giving Jordan Poole confidence, that might be something they do. Because whether you like it or not, they're going to try him at some point because they have to. Because Steph needs some help. And if guys aren't getting it done, these are quick hooks tonight. Now, I'm not saying it is for Clay because you just got to ride with him. And I'm not saying it is for Wiggins because you got to ride with him. But at some point, you're going to try this guy. So do you start him at the beginning? Give me your thoughts, or am I crazy? Also, we'll reset everything. What's your confidence level in these guys? The championship DNA that we've waited for the entire season, and many times, most times, almost all times, has not materialized. So we'll continue that conversation as well, and we'll get you ready for Giants baseball coming up shortly, only here on the Sports Leader.
what's trending now
Trending now.
on KNBR.com.
Kenny the Jet Smith from TNT joined Murph and Mac this morning to discuss why the Warriors still have a shot in the series, and he looks into the Jordan Poole situation. That podcast and more trending right now on the all-new KNBR app.
Listen to the sports leader anywhere, anytime. Download the all-new KNBR app. Now back to Papa and Lund live from the KNBR Casino Matrix studio. Casino Matrix progressive jackpots are here. Where are you? Just drop in. Please play responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER.
We're going to do a little Warriors talk at the bottom of the hour. Lots of great texts that I said we would get to as well about the Warriors do or die situation at Chase Tenant. We'll do that in about 10. But Melissa Loggart is one of our most popular guests, not only to listen to, but then we get tons of downloads because people love hearing about the prospects. And, of course, she does a great job with The Athletic, covering all the prospects and specifically about the A's and the Giants. And she joins us courtesy of the Uma Guest Line. How are you? Good to talk to you.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. People love talking about prospects because it offers hope, and I think both for the A's and the Giants, that's what they're looking for is just hope in the future. And obviously we saw Casey Schmidt last night off of a torrid spring, and he's kind of the latest to create a bunch of buzz. And then not only that, he brings us tons of family members because they're coming up from San Diego, so they're not far. And he's got the great story of he's at the movies. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and he misses the call. I mean, just everything was really cool. And then he comes up, hits a home run, second at bat, hits a singles, next at bat. He's got a great glove. So it just seemed to me, and I talked to Kevin Franz a little bit earlier, just the buzz at the ballpark was one of, okay, this is Farhan's first, guy that makes it. It was just it was the hope that I think Giants fans were hoping for.
Absolutely, yeah. And, he's the kind of guy that can elicit that kind of excitement because he's an exciting player to watch, right? Like, he's not sort of one of these kind of beer league guys that's going to stand up there and, maybe hit a home run but swing and miss a lot. He runs well. He's got an incredible arm. His defense is going to make highlight reels an everyday sort of event for, every Giants kind of highlight reel. And he's got some pop that you saw last night. And it was interesting because I was talking to him on Sunday in Sacramento and did not know that this was coming. But, I'd asked him because he hadn't really hit for a lot of power his first month in AAA and if he was worried at all. And he had, kind of said no, that there were a few balls that had gotten knocked down from the cold and the rain, but that he felt like it was coming. And you could just see, he sort of flicked his wrist and there it went way out into left center field. I mean, it was quite a blast on a cold night. So, you don't know whatever is going to happen when a guy gets up there, but everything he's done in the minor leagues just kind of screams well-rounded, all-around player. And I think, fans really just kind of love to see that sort of player.
Melissa, too, it's that, you usually can tell with a guy. Maybe you can't, but I mean, you can just tell. And last night, I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet. You have, and you've watched him a heck of a lot more than I have, but he just seems to kind of have that it. Like after the game, it was a funny interview that he was at, Guardians of the Galaxy, and he just seems loose and fun. Because one of the things with prospects all across every sport is you don't want to ruin their confidence too early. And I know that Farhan and the Giants specifically are just, there's steps to this, and they got to be ready, and there's a process, and and it frustrates fans at times, but that's just the way they do things. But in your interactions with him and watching him, does he kind of have that thing where, because all rookies go through this, right? He's going to go through a 1 for 20, and all this buzz is going to be like, we're buzzing over this guy. It happens.
It's not like he hasn't struggled before, too, and I think that's important when you can see how a guy reacts to that. When he made his professional debut back in 2021 in San Jose, he got off to a really slow start. He was battling a bad wrist. There was a concussion that he suffered and all sorts of kind of things to overcome, and he didn't put together a great first professional season. And, you've got that hype coming out of the draft where that can really drag a player down when they don't perform well right away. But he never seemed to lose any of that confidence. He's one of the guys that I think Andrew Baggerly from The Athletic did a great story on him in spring training. He's the guy that kind of does all the pranks in the clubhouse, and he brings everybody together. And he never lost any of that, even as he was struggling. And I think that's a sign that that they can handle those sort of pressures when they get up to the big leagues if they've gone through that in the minor leagues.
Melissa Loggart joining us, and she does a great job covering all the minor leagues and the prospects, and she's up on everybody. And so with Casey Schmidt, the other guy creating the buzz is obviously Kyle Harrison. And there was even talk of him potentially making the team, but you could see when you watched him, he needed a lot. He needed to work on his control quite a bit. And again, those steps that the Giants always talk about. And at AAA to start the season, I mean, I was looking down there and I was like, geez, he almost got as many walks as strikeouts. But it seems over the last few starts, he's kind of corrected those things.
Yeah, and there weren't huge adjustments. I talked to Garvin Alston, who's the great pitching coach in AAA there for the River Cats, and there were no mechanical overhauls they had to do with him. He's got a major league arm. Everybody knows that. But there was just ways he was sort of having to envision how his stuff was going to work. And, there's an interesting system that's being used in the Pacific Coast League this year. It's an automatic ball strike system that for the first 3 games of every 6-game series, the computers are calling all the balls and strikes, and it's very strict 17-inch strike zone. So you're a half inch off, you're a quarter inch off. It's a ball, even if a human umpire would have called that a strike. And, that takes a lot for any pitcher, and it's every pitcher across that league is dealing with that, of how mentally do you adjust yourself to that strike zone. And then it's interesting, the last 3 games of each of those series, it's human umpires calling balls and strikes, but the pitcher or the player can challenge a ball strike call, and then the computer will give the answer. So they really know what that 17-inch strike zone looks like by that time. The challenges it was pretty cool to watch on Sunday. I mean, there was a key one in the 9th inning there that if the call had gone the other way would have changed probably the outcome of that game. But in any case, I mean, I think it's been an adjustment for the whole league. Walks are up all over the place. And he's a guy whose pitches move so much that was sort of just needed to figure out, well, where am I going to try to place this pitch that's going to fit in this 17-inch strike zone? And he's starting to get that now.
All right, as far as the future of the catching position for the Giants, Patrick Bailey just made the move up to AAA, and again, I haven't seen him a ton. He's only played 8 games at AAA. Joey Bart has been in and out. He seems like he's doing much better. He's certainly gaining the confidence of the pitching staff. So again, having not watched Bailey a whole lot, what have been your impressions, and what do you think of Joey Bart and the start he's off to this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them have, shown they can handle the glove. And I think with Bart, obviously, that was the biggest question, with him initially, when he got to the big leagues, was that he wasn't quite handling the pitching staff the way they wanted him to. And I think he's really corrected that. And the offense was always going to come, I think, eventually, and it's starting to come around. With Bailey, he's a guy who, the coaching staff's only had him 8 games or 9 games up in Sacramento, and he's already made a huge impact with that entire pitching staff, with the way he handles the pitchers, the way he works with them pregame, how he frames pitches and everything else. And he looked really good in the game, that I saw live. We were right behind the plate, and he was really handling it well. The offense has been sort of hit and miss with him a little bit as he's kind of climbed up. He's especially struggled from the right side of the plate. He's a switch hitter. But his left-handed swing has generally looked pretty good, and you could kind of envision a pretty strong platoon there with Bart in the not too near future, I think, or in the near future, I should say. But yeah, I mean, I think, he's a very strong defensive catcher, and at the very least, I think you're going to see somebody who could be, a really reliable player for them defensively.
All right, one more on the Giants. If we were talking about the last number of years that we've talked to, we would almost always lead with Marco Luciano, and then he had back problems this year. He's only played 6 games, 18 at bats at AA. But where is he in terms of the timeline now that he's had the injuries and we had the pandemic? Where exactly is he?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's at that stage where it could come together really quickly, but you can't necessarily put a clock on it. He's at AA. He had a little taste of it last year. He's going to now finally, hopefully, stay healthy enough to get a bunch of at-bats there. And once you've reached that level, it can go really fast, and you could suddenly see somebody in the big leagues that, you hadn't really been thinking on the, horizon. With Schmidt's kind of a similar sort of thing. He's really not had that much time in AAA. So I don't know that you could put an exact clock on it. He's got to be able to stay healthy, but if Luciano is back to being who he is, I don't think that, next year would be unreasonable at all for him to be up there and a regular at this point.
Yeah, that's great. By the way, Jordan Diaz, 3 home runs. That was really cool last night against the Yankees for the A's. And then the other thing is, Evan Drellich is just a great rider, and he's got a piece up that you retweeted in The Athletic. I mean, this thing with the A's, just when you think it couldn't get any more stupid. I thought, wait a minute, I thought they had a piece of land and they were locked into it, but now they don't have a piece of land and they're going for another piece of land. I mean, my God, really? This is ridiculous.
It's like that cap game that they do up on the Jumbotron, where you're trying to find where the ball is.
Right.
And they're just going to keep moving the stadium, and then we'll see. Yeah, no, it's gotten to a point where if you wrote a comedy, they would think this was too over the top.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I just feel bad for the fans. Locally we understand what's going on, but when somebody has a commentary on it, and Evan's dialed in, he knows what he's talking about. But and they show the stadium, and they don't know the backstory. This isn't on the fans. This is on an owner who doesn't care, and I look at it almost like the movie Major League. Like, he's just trying to make it so bad that they just have no choice. But I don't think you should be rewarded as an owner of a team. I don't think you should be rewarded for that.
No, absolutely not. And he's not. The spirit of competition. I mean, the other owners should be irate with what he's getting money in revenue sharing. He's not putting it back into the team, and he's not moving the sport forward. And all 30 owners should be wanting to move the sport forward. And, he's doing nothing but give the league a black eye at every turn, and they have to be embarrassed about it. But, they seem to protect their own. And at this point, there's been nothing from the ownership or commissioner's office that makes you think that they're going to say to him, listen, it's time for you to sell this. You obviously don't know what you're doing, but it's obvious to everybody else.
Absolutely. Melissa, you're the best. Thank you so much. We appreciate the insight. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. Thanks. Bye.
You got it. Make sure you check Melissa out. She does a tremendous, tremendous job. And everybody, like I said, the A's and the Giants right now are selling hope. The A's obviously more than what the Giants are, but to see the scene last night for Casey Schmidt, when you get those kind of situations, and I've joked about it and laughed about it because I have cards and everything like that, but the reality is that was fun last night, and they need more of that, and it's hard to create that. You got to have somebody who's got the it, and I think Casey does, and we're talking Kyle Harrison and some of these guys, and so hopefully – this constant roster churning at the bottom, but that's what they do. But at the top, start to see some of these prospects, and it's always good to talk to Melissa about that. All right, let's get back to the Warriors and the Lakers at hand. It is do or die. It is must win for the Warriors. The one thing I haven't given you, and I told you I would read the best text, so I'll get to those coming up next. A lot of good responses to this whole championship DNA that they haven't shown enough this year, and if they will tonight at Chase Center, so we'll discuss. But some of the things that need to be done, and what do they do about Jordan Poole? What do they do about Klay Thompson? All these things, a lot of guys got to step up around Steph Curry, and they haven't enough in this series. We'll do it next, only here on the Sports Leader.
Dub Nation, filter out the noise and kick it with KNBR on the gram for everything blue and gold. Follow the sports leader on Instagram at KNBR.
I feel great, and we got nothing to lose. Down 3-1, you come out swinging, go down swinging if you do go down, but we're not going down. But you leave that court with no regrets. And like I said, you win one game, series flips, pressure flips, everything flips. So that's our goal. Clay will play better. I have no doubt in my mind I'll play better. Steph had an incredible game. Expect more of the same or even more from him. And everybody else will play great. Moses Moody's been giving us great minutes. Dante gave us some good minutes last night. GP gave great minutes. Loon, when Loon's in there, he's giving great minutes. Wiggs was aggressive. Like, listen, I'm living with it. And we just didn't make the plays we needed to make down the stretch to win the game. We'll make those plays. I have no doubt in my mind.
That obviously is Draymond Green from his podcast. Some of that I agree with, some of that I don't. We'll get into that conversation. We got Giants baseball coming up at about 45 past the hour. Award-winning Diamond Notes talking to John Miller and the such. But let's finish up our conversation about the Warriors. Text line is open. I got it in front of me. Hit me up, 415-808-5627, 415-808-KNBR. Give me some of your thoughts about tonight's game, whether the championship DNA that Draymond Green was just talking about will rear its head tonight, and if the series could flip. That part of it I do agree with. Pop and Lund today brought to us by our good friends Pacific Coast Termite, the trusted company that is rated A+ by the BBB, the Better Business Bureau. Pacific Coast Termite, 1-800-PACIFIC. That's 1-800-PACIFIC. The part I do agree with is that, yeah, Clay will play better. Yes, this series could flip quite easily, to be honest with you. It's not like a 3-1 hole where you're watching a team and you say to yourself, man, the 3-win team is just so much better than the 1-win team. It hasn't been that. So even though the numbers are ugly, 13 and 264 all-time for the team at 1 versus the team at 3, could this be a little bit different than that? Yeah, it could. Because you win tonight, and if you did get to a Game 7, 2 of your 3 games are at home, there's a long way to go before then. So let's assume for a minute that they do have the championship DNA, which I do believe they do, even though they haven't showed it enough this year. And the one reason it gets me a little nervous is there's no doubt in my mind they were going to win Game 6 against the Kings here. It was going to give them rest time before they played the Lakers, who still had to play Memphis. And yet, not only did they lose that game, they lost that game in spectacular fashion and had to go for a Game 7 against Sacramento, which may be one of the reasons why they're a little bit tired in this series, even though I hate that excuse. So that's part of this whole thing. The one part where I maybe disagree with Draymond is that all this stuff is kind of automatic because of the championship DNA. We'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do this, we'll do that. They can, there's no question about it, but there's a lot of things to be done, and some things are being set up. Steve Kerr is talking about the officiating, which is something, as I said at the beginning of the show, that when I covered series, the Bulls and the Jazz and the Spurs and all those things back in the day, that Greg Popovich, Jerry Sloan, Phil Jackson made a habit of right from the beginning of talking about. So I think it's interesting that Steve would come out, and that's a strategy that you use usually earlier on in a series, and he talked about the flopping and all the different things and how the NBA needs to change that. And I'm not saying this from a Warriors perspective. I mean, look, the game is hard to watch right now, not because the Lakers are doing it, and I got hit up on the text line on this. Look, they're doing it because it's part of the game. They use it as part of what they do. It's how they draw fouls. It's how they get to the line. James Harden, all these different guys do it. I thought a few years ago that when they did start doing this, because Steve mentioned in a cut about this happening in soccer, and they cut down on it, and now the flopping's gone. Look, the NBA is going to have to look at it from this standpoint. It's not aesthetically pleasing, just like baseball took too long with the interaction between a hitter and a pitcher, and now it's gotten sped up. It's just who can act better, and they're down in Hollywood, and they're doing it. And I'm not complaining about it if you're a Lakers fan driving around going, you're just saying that from a Warriors perspective. I'm saying that from an NBA perspective. I watched the 76ers and the Celtics last night, and James Harden flopping all over the floor. When when I see a guy like, Jared Vanderbilt, who's 240 pounds, get knocked over by a feather, I just think it's not basketball. And, a lot of people have called for a kind of a different interpretation as far as the charge is concerned. I'd much rather see a guy contest a shot than take a charge, but that's just the way that the game is played nowadays. I don't know if that's going to change. So that's one frustrating part of it, but Steve Kerr is trying to kind of get the officials in his corner. Will that work? Maybe, maybe not. The better solution to that, because I don't think it's going to work, is that you've got to not foul so much. That's a huge thing tonight. You got to move your feet. You can't give them those opportunities. They're going to dive. It's going to happen. But it was a winnable situation when the Lakers were minus 11. In the free throw make, and that's what I look at, the free throw makes, not attempts, because I don't care about attempts if you missed it. The makes are the thing to me is if you're minus 11, you can win a game. They lost one that they were minus 20. They won one that they were minus, they were right in that realm. But if they're minus 11 last game out, that wasn't the reason they lost the game. They lost the game because of late game execution and turnovers and stupid plays that are completely preventable. So that's why I think they have a shot tonight, and I think they'll win. Then it comes down to, and this isn't like blue sky radio. This is reality. I don't think this thing ends, and maybe it does, and we'll get into it next week. I'm not here to have a conversation about whether Draymond opts in or whether Poole gets traded or all that. We have an entire offseason to do that. But as far as tonight goes, I'd be shocked if they didn't win tonight. And then it comes down to, for the 29th consecutive playoff series, winning a game on the road. It would have been nice if it was last game, but the reality is if you're down 3-2, which I expect them to be tomorrow when we meet again, and then all of a sudden you're in a Game 6 in L.A., now this to me is for the series, because if they come back up here for Game 7, again, I'm not saying that the Lakers couldn't win a Game 7 on the Warriors' court, but I think it's highly unlikely. So if you're an optimistic Warriors fan, the one thing you can look at is probably going to win tonight. Vegas has you as a 7-point favorite. Not going to be the favorite down in L.A., but if you win that game, all of a sudden, all this talk and this doomsday, and we've seen this in all sports, right? A team is down a couple of games, or a team, the Niners get blown out in a certain game, and all week long it's all doom, 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 doom. And all of a sudden it changes from, oh my gosh, this thing's tied at 3, and there's a ton of pressure on the Lakers, and now all the stuff comes up of paying LeBron back for 3-1. Now, look, we're a long way away from that, because it doesn't just happen. Klay Thompson has got to be a lot better tonight. Now, do I think he will be? Yeah. Draymond Green continues to call himself out. I need to be better. I don't know why you have to continue to call yourself out. I don't know why you just can't be better. Hopefully he's motivated by being a second-team Defensive Player of the Year. He was on that yesterday. I don't think he should have even been that, but okay. If you're going to do that, Anthony Davis has been awesome in this series. Show us what you got. As far as it's going to be interesting to me, the starters, and I said this before, it's not about who starts, it's who finishes. That's where the trust is. So Moses Moody last game, that's where Steve Kerr put his trust as that fifth guy. I think at some point with Lonnie Walker, but this is revisionist history, with Lonnie Walker being as hot as he was, why not put Gary Payton in there? But okay. But it does show that he doesn't have complete trust in Gary Payton, even though the fact that he scored 15 and was generally pretty good in that game. Would you go with the ultra ballsy move that if it doesn't work, that the media would go bananas on you and probably 3/4 of the stories would be written, you started Jordan Poole? What were you thinking? If he's not good. But that's the kind of ballsy move I think they need. I think they need him. I mean, if you look at this, it can't be all Steph tonight. As Draymond said coming into the segment, it's got to be a lot of him defensively. And he's wide open. And I'm not expecting Draymond Green to score 21 like he did against the Kings in that series. But if you are wide open and you can get to the rim, you can't just turn around because Anthony Davis is standing there. And they got to find a way as a coaching staff to keep him not rooted in the middle where he just kind of stands around and blocks shots and is the ultimate eraser. So there's a lot of pressure on a lot of people. Where I don't agree with Draymond Green the most coming into this segment is where he says, there's no pressure on us. You're the Golden State Warriors. You're the defending champs. There's a ton of pressure on you. Now, can you move that pressure over if you win tonight? And if you win in Game 6 and force a Game 7? Absolutely. But there's pressure on the Warriors to win every time they hit the court, especially in the playoffs. Now, I'll give you the ultimate if you're feeling down on the Warriors. So 13-264 is not a good number, being down 3-1. That's the number. They did come back against OKC, and Cleveland did come back against them, and it hasn't happened since Denver did it in the bubble twice in 2020. Only 21 times has a team in the 1-3 hole even forced a seventh game, but here's the good news. Since 2010, the 1-3 team, which the Warriors are the one, the team down 3-1 is 13-4 in Game 5. 13-4 in Game 5 since 2010. And Vegas has you as a 7-point favorite. Now, look, maybe they lose tonight. And maybe then we talk about the dynasty and it's the end and blah, 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 blah. We got a long time to do that. But I think it is. I think that Game 5, I think they win this game. And then I think Game 6 is for all the marbles. Because I don't think the Lakers are going to come back after losing 2 straight. I think there's going to be a ton of pressure on them. And I think that the Warriors get it done in a Game 7. So to me, it's going to come down to a Game 6. I know that's overly simplistic. But if you listen to the national pundits continue to say, they've got to win 3 in a row, they got to win 3 in a row, they got to win 3 in a row. And I don't mean it to go coach speak on you. They got to win 1. They got to win tonight. That's what they got to do. They got to win tonight. That's what it comes down to. Win tonight, 3-2. Still pressure's on you, but then you play in L.A. And look, here's the bottom line to the whole thing. The Warriors blew out the Lakers. The Lakers blew out the Warriors. Other than that, it's been a pretty close series. They know each other very well. Adjustments to be made. And the bottom line is this. This isn't going to be a Steph 50-point game where he carries the team on his back. The Lakers are too good for that. So will Klay Thompson bounce back? Most certainly. Will Draymond Green? He just said he would. Will Jordan Poole? That's a major question mark. I don't know. But a lot of guys got to be a lot better. They had open shots to hit a lot of this series, and they just haven't done it. That's a major part of this whole thing. So we'll reconvene tomorrow at 10 a.m. Papa will be back in the house, and we'll either be talking about the offseason and Jordan Poole being traded and all this kind of stuff, and are they breaking up the dynasty and Draymond Green, or we'll be talking about a Game 6 and a flicker of hope for the Warriors, which is what I think will happen. Thanks, as always. Appreciate Walter and appreciate Danny getting everything done. Great to talk to Sam Amick, Melissa Lockard, and Kevin Franzen. Giants baseball is coming up right now. I'll have your diamond notes for you, get you ready for the Nationals and the Giants. Casey Schmidt Game 2. We'll do it all next, only here on the Sports Leader.
And indeed, from Oracle Park, it is a San Francisco kind of morning. A little overcast. The marine layer seems to be burning off, though. We're still an hour away from baseball. Game 3 of the series, final game of the homestand, the Giants and the Nationals. Giants trying to make it a winning series. Sean Manaea gets the ball for the Giants up against the right-hander Josiah Gray. And yeah, of course, Casey Schmidt is in there playing shortstop again today for the Giants. I'm Dave Fleming along with John Miller. Full pregame show to come. Giants and Nats baseball on the radio.